Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you have enjoyed your lunch. When I was asked to deliver a keynote speech, which was great honor for me, I was a little bit confused on what title I should select. Well, here you have the word utilization.
No, it's Kyungho Suh.
Who's speaking? Well, utilization is very easy to speak, but not so easy to realize, to implement. And so I decided, to relate the MoW register with the discipline of historical study in a long term, in a larger sense, in order to seek for possibility of changing our historical landscape or its horizon if possible. I think MoW register may become a good source of making a drastic or major changes from conventional concept of history at present to the future enlarged horizontal narration of what humanity is like. Well, let's go directly to my story. This story is partly a reiteration of what I spoke. I gave in a talk on the occasion of MoCap General Meeting last year in Andong. And also I have mentioned some of the points in the roundtable we had the other day in Andong too. So some of the colleagues who had been present in Andong's roundtable may recall what I've been talking about, but this time I would like to reiterate in a form of narrative I have constructed on the basis of my experience to serve as a member of the International Advisory Committee for 8 years from 2005 through 2013, in which time I was able to make access to more than almost 300 nomination dossiers. As you know, just a moment, Memory of the World, now since it was launched in 1992, and the inscription started in 1997, now we have 494 documents inscribed on international register. This number is in some sense large, in another sense small. We have 12 rounds of International Advisory Committee meeting, and every round of nomination cycle had about 41 items to be inscribed in average. Let's see the process, the course of the development of MoW during the last 30 years in number. We find that the trajectory by which MoW had expanded from the very beginning, but please focus on the number of submissions, not the number of inscriptions, because the number of submission and its fluctuation shows how this program came into the status we are witnessing at present time. Until, let's say, 2009, the number of submissions remained at the level of 40, 50s. From 2011, it went to the level of 80, and suddenly in 2017, it reached 132 and dropped again. 5 years of freezing, it dropped 88, I'm sorry. I think the number will remain above 80 after all, from next round. But this fluctuation means that, at least seen in number, more and more memory institutions are exposed to the activity of the Memory of the World program. I think many of the people who have been associated with this program are familiar with its aim of preserving and enhancing public access to the documentary heritage, which are common property of humanity. Well, this very fine, well-defined phrase, and many memory institutions are complying with the basic original meaning of this proclamation. However, as time passes, Memory of the World program has shaped its inherent but undeclared, unproclaimed aim or function. To my mind, Memory of the World program now serves as a platform wherein many individual communities in the world claim the extent of contribution their ancestors had made to the shaping of human history. It's not simply a matter of preservation or enhancing public access. It's a matter of pride of a nation state. It's a matter of pride of an ethnic group. It's a matter of preservation for lost memory of languages their ancestors have used. And they try to retrieve all to the present time and try to claim that, look at, my ancestors had been so glorious. This is the slogan. Many nominators try to raise their voices by inscribing their documents on international register. Another function the Memory of the World program serves is a repository of the documents that are neglected, ignored, or disfavored and persecuted by political forces around the world. We call it the documents of negative memory. These documents had survived somehow, but most of the governmental bodies do not like to put them onto the surface of public attention. By operating the inscription system, Memory of the World program has attracted a large number of the documents pertaining to memory, negative memory of the past, mostly from immediate past or recent past, on genocide, on terror, dictatorship, and victimization of those people who have invaded or being exploited into a platform and be inscribed onto international register. And finally, this program provides a function of platform wherein the archivists of present generation are creating documentation of the events in the immediate past to be remembered to be reminded of if necessary, and to be inherited by our posterities. In fact, all these people who are engaged in archiving or organizing new archives by putting pieces, fragmentary pieces from the bundle of the undefined documents, are trying to preserve not simply the documents, but actually the facts. So no matter in what way those documents are interpreted by the later historians who are affected by the change of ideological or political climate, the documents preserves the testimonies on the facts of the events they have experienced in their time. And these facts will be preserved to the posterities, to the time of posterities, unless intentionally destroyed. And during the 30 years of history, the program has been originally intended to inscribe just this and that. There was no limitation. There was no guidance for what type of documents should be inscribed. And, well, the general guidelines had made room as large as possible to accommodate any kind of documents that satisfies criteria in the evaluation could be inscribed. However, as we have spoken about in the roundtable, probably in Andong, the perspective or standpoint taken by the operator of the program and those people who are applying to the program are different. While we are talking about preservation or enhancing public awareness of the documents, people are talking about raising national pride by increasing their inscription to international register. That's the discrepancies in the way the program is looked at. And with this in mind, we need to observe some phenomenon that had emerged without any intention, without any deliberate designing through the history of 30 years. That's emergence of thematic clusters. Rosalind had spoken this morning about thematic approach, and I would say the emergence of thematic clusters, which means that documents sharing some thematic similarities gathers, follows, and finally form a cluster after 10 or 15 years. I have mentioned three examples that had been usually quoted during our annual workshop hosted by Korean National Commission for UNESCO. These are just examples of the clusters we've been figuring out easily, but without any clear definition, without proclaiming any borderlines between a theme and another. And for the aim of the enhancing public awareness, I think the present MoW program had not much achieved in that part of the work as they had done in expanding the number of inscriptions. well, enhancing public awareness is very, very difficult job to achieve. Public audience is not the people you just imagine to be very compliant to your inducement, encouragement, or advice, or whatever. So I think one of the ways to enhance our public awareness of the significance of the document may come from some remarks by elite historians who dominates shaping of the public opinion in many aspects in our society. And therefore, I think we need to invite some of the intellectual discourse undertaken by eminent historians into the sphere of activities of the memory of the world. For that matter, as you might have seen in the exhibition hall downstairs, we need to create some form of our own narrative to facilitate the dialogue between documents and history. And for that matter, I think I would like to propose a path by which some narrative may be developed. And this is one of the potential as a potential path to develop such a narrative. Our colleague from Grenada, Angus, had provided good information about the contribution of Caribbean region to the international inscriptions the other day. And I collected most available data from the inscription list, list of international inscription register to the date of 2023. Slavery system is well known, but look at this list of the documents that had been inscribed. You can find that the first one had invited second, and second invited third. A certain process similar to what anthropologists call sympathetic magic that says like produce like. In this case, there was certainly a mentality of why not mine was working behind the scene. So in 2003, there was first documents inscribed to International Register. And as of 2017, I was sure this was forming already a cluster. And in 2022, when I was in the workshop, we found that the participants from Mauritius came with the potential nomination that pertains to slavery system in Indian Ocean. So I anticipated that we would add one more document of this thematic category. But unexpectedly, we had 3 documents inscribed on the same year of 2023. The fact that the documents pertaining to slave system came from various different corners of the world means that it was a global phenomenon, especially adding the fact that the port of Middelburg in Netherlands was hub of the slave transaction And also the Mauritius functioned as the most important base for slave transaction in Indian Ocean. Means there was a global stream of slave trading systems that had ended finally in Zanzibar after the emancipation prevailed in the world. So we are now talking about not only about slavery system, but talking about a phenomena triggered by greatness of the merchants or as a part of the development of capitalistic economy. We are witnessing a trajectory of worldwide migration, forced migration, triggered by some engineering force. And we may expect some more. Maybe there may come other documents pertaining to the same theme from other parts of the world. I'm thinking of North African countries, where Tunisia already have one document inscribed to international register, but other North African countries may have some additional documents of this theme. Why the records of this slavery system? Well, if we relate this story to next one, the records of the indentured laborers, which was in part a replacement of slavery system to provide sufficient labor force for plantations and the colonial colonies. For these themes, we have still the documents from India, I mean South Pacific and South America and West Indies and Mauritius. But we may have some, there may be some others. How about Chinese migration? I don't know. I wish Hongmin was here. We simply do not know whether Chinese migration had left any traces of documented legacy, but it is quite a fact that millions of Chinese people had migrated to plantations and other cities in Southeast Asian countries in 17th century onward. We know that Chinese laborers and the scale of the 200,000 at least had worked in the construction site of Transcontinental Railway. And we know that there were a large number of Chinese coolies in the plantations of Hawaii as well as in Jamaica. So this migration was not simply a moving of some small scale of population for to find jobs outside the country. It was a large-scale migration, and if we have, fortunately, to have any records pertaining to this, then we can widen our perception on the scale of migration, as a result of which the present world order had been established to some extent. And Indian migration or African migration to European countries. Please be reminded that this theme of migration is not just history. It's ongoing situation. We are all exposed news of the migration from North Africa to Southern European countries. People from Central and South America to the border of the United States from Mexico. So migration, just like mountain fire or bushfire, is part of the features by which this world order is kept, operated, and moved toward the future. Therefore, this is not simply a matter of criticism or a history that should be forgotten by some intentions. This is just a fact that should be regarded as part of our history. And finally, there have been some forces that have triggered all these features of the slavery system or large-scale transnational, transcontinental migrations. It's East or West India companies from various European countries. We know, according to the present inscription, we know the archives of Danish overseas trading companies and Dutch East India Company, Dutch West India Company. They all have left documentation, and we are sure that they have been either involved partly or, well, directly in the slave trade system, as well as the important customer for accepting the Indian indentured laborers from many different parts of the world. We are lacking, however, the records from British India Company, British East India Company, that was most active at the from 18th through 19th century in Indian Ocean region. And we also lack the records pertaining to plantation enterprises in the Pacific and Caribbean region. If we put together all these materials to the list of already inscribed documents pertaining to the change of the world from 15th century down to the 20th century, then slavery system is related to the phenomenon of Great Migration, and Great Migration actually was triggered and operated or pushed by these Western companies, were targeting Indian Ocean. This is one of the examples of the narrative we can formulate through the inscribed documentary heritage. And if I think it is it has a kind of effect to induce nominations of less recognized documents. Just think of that. We have almost 500 inscriptions now. When it reaches about 1,500 inscriptions, what people would think about Memory of the World program? Would it remain still so valuable program to participate? Or would it become just one of the programs that anybody can make access if they have some time-lapse documents or so? We don't know. However, present thematic clusters has an effect of the inducing new nominations from less recognized memory institutions. And it enhances, as you have seen in the case of the slavery system, enhancing the range of depths of historical knowledge. And it is quite obvious that density of knowledge increases by adopting, incorporating more documents from different language zones. The problem is that most of the historians in the national history only want to read the documents in their own language, especially those scholars in the global history, mostly from English-speaking countries. They do not learn foreign language and simply try to interpret history based on what they read in English version. But if these documents in various language are incorporated, either by efforts of person or by so-called artificial intelligence in the future, which may not be very remote from now, then there would be someday, there would come a day when language barrier would not mean anything anymore. And also, all these semantic clusters, if it is expanded, may motivate new historical narratives from global perspectives. This means that even though we are talking about international register, still many of I really find that many of custodians of particular documentary heritage looks at the documents as national treasure. Few people agree that it is common property of humanity. But if historical perspectives are added to these documents, try to refine the meaning of the program, then I think there will be other narrative that replaces the conventional history kind of narrative that prevails the history textbook at the present time. Especially that would be one of the ways to be free from so-called Eurocentric structure of historical interpretation. With this, for the future of the Memory of the World program, I would like to suggest that we have a need to refine the aims and activities fair of the Memory of the World to some extent, even though we don't need to proclaim it in the general guidelines. We may have some inherent, implicit agreement that Memory of the World program may serve for the purpose that has not been clearly defined in the general guidelines. The first one, preserving documentary heritage as humanity's shared property. This is one of the phrases I have extracted from the general guidelines or other documents related to Memory of the World programs. We can add, bringing new records to the world's attention. Well, this is tremendous possibility, and we shall see some of the cases that had been unnoticed in the past. For example, this is not the Memory of the World sphere, but we have recently a report from Business World in Global Financing Market. A scholar had discovered that interest rate have never dropped seriously. It had continuously went up from 15th century through 21st century, only experiencing just 2 or 3 times of drops, but followed by very immediate recovery. How he knows? He was complaining about the economist just relying on statistics from 30, 40 years from now. So he decided to visit all European libraries where the financial documents were likely to be stored. And he had found lots of documents in Latin language about the financial transaction from medieval age through 19th century. And he added the statistics from Wall Street to the data he collected from Latin language documents he investigated. This is one of the cases. Well, though it has nothing to do with the memory of the word, this is a lesson that so-called utilizing unregistered, less recognized documents or evidences from the word alienated from ours in language or in terms of cultural differences still can be helpful in widening our historical geography. And if the new records are brought to the world's attention, it may trigger challenges to conventional discourse of history, and it will ultimately encourage an alternative picture of global development, which means we are one step further toward completion of global history. Enhancing public awareness, this is also the phrase from general guidelines. We need to appeal to the general public with narratives, not slogans. We are now relying on slogans, but we need narratives. Just think of the National Geographic documentary program where the knowledge of sciences are used to appeal to public audience. Audience are impressed not by the knowledge of science itself, but impressed by the way the knowledge of science had been acquired by humanity. Likewise, even though we're talking about documentary heritage, we need to provide a narrative pertaining to what these documents mean to us. Simply emphasizing its significance has no effect in appealing to public audience. And involvement of intellectual discourse in MOW-related activities, if it can be done, may be more effective in and influential to the public audience. And by doing this, MOW can inspire a new intellectual sensitivity with its own narrative for widening our empirical horizon, which means that the word we recognize now is not the original word as it was. The word is recognized through the power of interpretation, and interpretation is supported by more factual evidences, more factual knowledge. We can widen our horizon of experiences by utilizing the memories. If I'm required to make a summary, I'd like to suggest this way. MOW is now a program to recruit in an administrative way and operate in terms of management. I think it would be desirable to guarantee its sustainability to the mode of enhancing intellectual discourse within and without, so that while we provide, the MOW provides new information to the community of interest historians and give them some inspiration for enriching the global history, MOW-related small community should be ready for incorporating the inspirations from outside. Let's say collaboration or reciprocal relationship or whatever it is defined. That it seems to me a very suggestive way for future sustainability. I think, do we have Mr. Lothar Jordan online now? I think Research and Education Subcommittee may play a very important role if this suggestion is accepted. Anyway, I hope Mr. Jordan comment on this proposal. Well, I'll stop here. Thank you very much.